So again, Sunday, the number one reason why we did it, and then the reason why I stepped out of being CEO of Big Mama, which is a really good job to spin off Sunday and raise millions and do it across 2 continents, etc., was it's great for the guests. But then we realized that the value prop was so rich for the staff and for the restaurant.
That's what you call a win-win-win situation.
You're not looking for a job, right? You're pitching it better than I do. The table turn for a lot of restaurants, apart from our Michelin star clients, etc., because they come to it from a different angle. But typically the restaurants we're sitting at here, I checked the data before coming. The tables that are paid with QR codes turn 11 minutes faster, which is 15%. So when your table turns 15% on a Monday lunch, it's probably not going to change anything.
Right.
But on a Saturday night, you're going to make 9% more top line.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you're a brunch place and you're doing 80% of your money on like 4 shifts, this is 6 or 7% more top line.
If you got 200 seats too, that's when you can really start to see like the more volume you're doing, the bigger these numbers are going to be.
Yes, and it's not just that you're going to turn table more, you will, but also that table is going to be sat 15 minutes for 10 minutes faster. And what do you do when you're sat and you're not waiting 10 minutes for your table if you're a high volume restaurant? You're going to get another cocktail.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. That is one of the huge value prop. Higher tips, faster table turn. And what happens when you pay on your phone? When you pay on your phone, in one click you enroll in the loyalty if you're a restaurant with loyalty. And how many restaurants have loyalty but struggle to make it work?
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, co-founder of Sunday, Victor Lugger. My man Victor, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a good day today.
Dude, I'm stoked to be here. It was about a year ago you first came on my radar. We were talking about maybe collaborating. I really loved what you guys are doing, but I have this rule that I won't get people on the show unless I got an organic testimonial from a leading restaurateur. Like a month later, came to Atlanta, 4 people who I highly respect, and a third actually today, I think a fifth. I mean, the real taco guys, Fars Cargar, he gave you a testimonial. Federico Castellucci, like the referrals just started pouring in. I missed my window last year, but we're here this year. We're going to make it happen. I can't wait to kind of share your story, to learn more about Sunday app. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
One I like a lot is success is showing up.
Success is showing up, man. And you made it happen. You showed up here today. We crammed it in. It was last second, and you're living your mantra. So thank you so much, man. Great way to get this thing started. I know we want to talk about Sunday app, right? And I'm sure my listeners are really interested, but I feel like it doesn't pay homage to your career prior to launching the Sunday app. So real quick, paint the picture, big picture, portfolio. You have Sunday app, but you also are a restaurateur.
I think first and foremost, I'm a restaurateur.
Yes.
So I'm French, 40 years old, born and raised in Strasbourg. And 12 years ago, with my co-founder Tigran, we didn't have any better idea than launch an Italian restaurant. We wanted to have our stuff. We wanted to do something together. And we couldn't find any good idea. We knew nothing about hospitality. And we said, well, instead of doing nothing, let's just do a restaurant. It seems pretty easy, right?
Yeah. Famous last words. I think not knowing anything is a blessing in disguise, because I think if everybody knew what they were about to embark on, so many people would probably be too afraid to start.
Probably, yes. We made it happen because we didn't know it was impossible.
Right.
So that's how we started. And fast forward, I'm a blessed restaurateur. I love this. I'll be a restaurateur all my life. We now have 30 restaurants across
30 restaurants.
Across 7 countries in Europe.
Wild.
They're pretty sort of big, high vibe trattoria. So they're all Italian. They all have a different name though, and they're all under the umbrella brand of Big Mama. That's how our group is called. It's a 3,000 people group. So today we're in 7 countries, but by the end of the year, we'll be in Dubai and we'll also be in the United States. So it's a very, very, very busy and exciting year for us. That's my first journey, and that's where I learned everything I know about people, about restaurants, about this industry that is so challenging but also exciting, generous.
So what year did you guys start?
12 years ago.
12 years ago. In 12 years, you've scaled to 30 locations. In how many countries?
7.
That's amazing, man. when did things really start to catch fire for you? Like, how long were you like single unit, 2 unit, 3 unit before you really started to figure out the formula and scale?
I think there were two turning points. First, between us deciding let's do restaurants, we resigned from our jobs and we're full time on the 1st of Jan 12 years ago, and opening our first real restaurant in Paris. It took us 2 years and a half, and after 1 year, my girlfriend, now wife, started to say, "Hey, I don't know, you're doing restaurants, like when is it you're opening again?" So it took us 2.5 years. In the meantime, we did pop-ups, etc., but that was very much 0 to 1. Then we opened our first restaurant, and there was a queue around the block for the first lunch, like an Apple store. I still to that day, I'm not quite sure how that happened, but from that day on, we were not trying to make fire, but we were just putting logs in the fire because we had this incredible success. Because I don't know, we hit the nail on the head by bringing very authentic Italian food. Everything we bought was bought directly from producers. We had built our own logistic from Italy to France, and all our staff, except from my partner and I, were Italian.
Okay.
And so that restaurant was a big hit in Paris, and 3 months later, we opened a second one that, of course, we had signed and invested in before even opening the first one. How stupid is that? No one ever does that.
Wait, say that one more time. I want to make sure I heard you right.
We signed one restaurant, and before we open it and make it work, we signed a second one, and we start building the second one.
Okay.
And then I'm like, shit, this
Tap
is
the brakes, brother. How? Okay. Real quick. What was it about you in your Italian restaurant in France, Paris, France, to say the least, that stood out in that noise? Because people go from all over the world to go eat in Paris, France. And what is it that you're doing differently? And like that, you can't be the only Italian restaurant in Paris, France.
I think there are quite a few things that 10 years ago we brought in France. The first one was value for money. I mean, on all the things you can try to be the best at, we want to be the best at value for money everywhere we go, still to that day. And I think we had the best value for money at the time. We still have. Probably.
Were you making money? Were you giving things away? Were you profitable?
So yes, because what happened was because we had great value for money, and the second thing we had was huge restaurants, like 160
okay,
seaters.
I was gonna say, there must have been a volume happening.
Yes,
here.
it's a volume play. And we had 160 seats in Paris. That is the third biggest restaurant in town. So it was a very big restaurant. We invested a lot of money in design, whereas in France, most of the restaurants will have these brick and bulbs and exposed white walls. The reason why is that French chefs are so full of themselves that they're like, I'm not going to invest in service. I'm not going to invest in design because it's all about the food. I disagree.
100%.
Food has to be great, but service has to be amazing. And design is at least a third of the experience you're giving me. So we had a huge restaurants, big design, and value for money. And that we had 3 times more guests that we expected. We made way less margins, but in the end, we made good money. And that's how we started to scale it. Then 3 years later, on the same months, we opened our first restaurant in London.
2015.
Yeah. And then we opened a 50,000 square feet restaurant in Paris.
How many seats is that?
That's 8,000 people on a Saturday.
2015.
Yeah. And so that brought us to the next level. We went from having four restaurants in Paris to being in Paris and London and having these huge behemoth restaurants. From a team perspective, people grew so fast with this experience. It was that brought us to the next level.
So in 3 years, from 2013 to 2000, or 2 years, you went from pop-up to 4 locations.
Yeah.
In two countries?
In Paris. And then we opened London and that huge big location. And so that was, at this stage, we started to have scale. And so a lot of people in the company grew in sort of the middle management, HR.
Yeah, can we pause real quick? Because I want to kind of pull back a couple layers. I know I really want to dive into Sunday, and I want to make sure we're going to do like a fast forward motion play today. But in terms of the economics, like for example, I was speaking to Federico Castellucci, and they have their 1-star sushi restaurant, Mujo. Thank you very much.
Amazing restaurant.
Yes, so amazing. And then right after that, I spoke to Lazy Betty, Ron, and Aaron. So completely opposite gameplay, right? They are they're going after stars, right? Yeah. And I think they have one's a 70-seat restaurant, the other one's like a 15-seat or something like that. So they got into the economics of that. Get into the economics of your other restaurants. Like, like prime cost? Like, what are you aiming for? Like, what kind of like percent margins can you get out of that?
For American listeners, our trattorias are very much a European version. It's an Italian pastis, if you like. I think that's probably what describes what we do the best. So big volumes, sort of high octane design, but pretty traditional. The food at pastis is traditional. It's actually very French. The soupe à l'oignon in pastis is one of the best I've ever had, and it's value for money. I think that captures our business model. And so now I can give you elements of figures, but figures between Paris, London, and Madrid differ quite a lot.
Can you give us like loose ballpark
figures? Of course. The main thing in our industry in Europe is exactly like here. It's the staff. This is what creates the restaurant. This is what makes it vibe. So this is also the biggest cost in Europe. We're between 35 and 40% of staff cost.
So labor cost 35.
Labor
40%.
cost, yes. Then food cost is 20. Let's round it up at 25.
Okay.
Rents in Europe are between 2 and 8%.
Okay,
we are outliers here because we do huge volumes.
Right.
Your average guys will be rather between 6 and 12.
Okay.
We're between 2 and 8.
Got it.
And then others, this other line, for us it's 6-7%, whereas in the US it's way bigger because you have a lot of security, insurances, energy costs here are even higher than in Europe, etc. So this other line, which in the US can top up to 15-16%, for us in Europe is 8.
Okay, and then whatever's left over is percent profit.
Yeah, well, there's probably one or two other things I'm forgetting, but yes.
But ballpark, where were you falling with percent profit? I won't have you share revenue, but like what was?
Yeah, of course. A good restaurant in Europe will operate, a good restaurant of ours in Europe will operate at 26% EBITDA at site level. And then you have your head office, which is, depending on how you count, for growth between 4 and 8%.
Got it. Okay, thank you for getting into
that's a very healthy restaurant company in Europe, to give you a perspective.
I mean, one thing that stood out to me is the labor cost, right? But there's something that we do different here in America, tipping, that's kind of teetering right now, right? So I think maybe when we talk about your move to the U.S. market, we can talk about how that was different, or if there's anything else that's different about the U.S. market. I think you touched on some of the things, but high labor costs, and I think the U.S. is one of the few. Is South America is another one that does tipping.
I mean, in the UK, you have service charge, which is 12.5%, whereas here it's more 20%. It's more 20%.
Yeah.
So, and even in the US, you have we do a lot of tipping with Sunday. One of our value prop at Sunday, which is my payment business, is that we increase tips. So in the restaurant where we sit here, table paid with Sunday have a 9% higher tips, typically. So we know a lot about tips. They're so different from the way they're managed between DC, Florida, New York, Chicago, and here in Atlanta. So even here in the US, the tipping culture, American in general will tip 20%, but the way it's managed by the restaurants, from some of them now, typically in DC, you see more and more service charge, which leads to the tip being managed very differently from other places. The minimal wage is increasing structurally very highly in blue states, to make it simple. It's not the case, or less the case, in red states. So even in the US, you see a lot of discrepancies on tips between Texas and New York.
Okay, so by 2015, you're at 4 locations, and this is only 10 years ago, and since then you've opened 26 locations. So before we get to Sunday App, just kind of touch for you. Like I like to say, our mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. And I really like to focus on the transformation of the restaurateur, the roadblocks you met along the way, like the different challenges along this evolution, and how you overcame those challenges. So what were the specific challenges for you? I think you started to get into it with at your 4th location, 2015, you started to have to build your executive suite, right? That was, I think, where you left off before I paused you. So, get back into that challenge.
If I look back, and now we know so many restaurateurs, if I want to try and capture a few things that I think are relevant about our story in particular, I would say, as founders and CEOs, we have, and this is also about our personality, but we've always went for the next adventure. So 4 years into Big Mama, I took my wife and kids and moved to London to open London. So I started from scratch again, from 0 to 1, try to open London. Yeah. No one cares about you in London when you're from Paris.
Right.
So, but what happened when I did that was that from one day to another, instead of having 2 founders in Paris, you only had 1. And so our managers, our team, people had to grow, had to fill that space, had to occupy that space. And I often think that responsibility is not something you can delegate. People take it or they don't. It's like a plate. You hold the plate in your hand and drop it. And maybe someone's going to catch it. That's responsibility. Mm-hmm. And 2 years later, Tigran, my co-founder, moved to Spain and said, you know what? You guys handle France. At the time, France was 80% of our business. And we're like, you're on your own. That has allowed 2 things. It has allowed amazing individuals to grow in our company. Now they're actually running the business. Fast forward today, and if you go in my restaurants, people who, sorry, but they work their ass off because that's...
People have said far worse on this podcast.
All right. Because this is what it is to work in restaurants. They don't do it for Tigran or for Victor. They do it for their manager who actually does it for another guy. It's not anymore founder-led. It's very decentralized. Because I moved to London, then Tigran moved to Madrid, then I launched Sunday, then I stepped out of being CEO at Big Mama. Now I just work 20% of my time on Big Mama. And all of that always creates sort of aspiration for the team to grow.
Yeah.
That has allowed us to grow, and we were not limiting the growth of the company.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Yeah, 3 things come to mind when I hear you say this. The first is paralysis by analysis. The second is we waste so much time just thinking about the thing, like instead of just doing it. And like there's something to be said about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you get that mindset and you're just constantly pushing forward, like things just happen. And the other thing, oh man, of course it would escape my mind. The book, It's My Company Too by Tom Walter. In that book, it's all about how do you create a culture instead of a hierarchy where looks like a tree, right? It's like a bush. Like it all comes back in again. You create a company of people who treat it like they own it, and it's called like it's my company too. So and I hear that from your story that you have this culture of where people treat it like they own it. So can you really just distill what you've done? Because I think this is the biggest pain point for a lot of people. I like to say behind every great restaurant's a great person. And when you start to scale an organization, you're almost like diluting that individual, because that individual has to motivate and inspire the people. But when you get too many people, you can't, like your impact starts to kind of lose its original force, right? So what have you done to be able to create this organization of a culture where everyone treats it like they own it?
I mean, all of us restaurateurs do the same stuffs, etc. So I don't want to pretend we did anything particular, but 2 things come to mind. The first one is no one, and we're 3,000 people now in the company, no one ever occupied a management position without coming from the ground up. Everyone we recruit comes at a junior level. And so when you come at a junior level, you're 23, you arrive in the restaurant, and the big guy in the kitchen, because you're a cook, you're a line cook, the big guy is 27, and 4 years ago, he was exactly where you were. Actually, sometimes 2 years ago. And you're like, okay, that could be me.
Yeah.
That, we have we're like sort of fanatics about internal promotion.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things that we might be doing differently from others. I think the second one is when the company was sort of 4 years old, at the time we were probably like 500, we already had 160 people that had equity interest in the company.
Wait, 4 years old, 160 people had equity interest in the company.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this stuff. Please share that, like what you're allowed to share with, like what does that model look like? How did you structure that?
That's not translatable to America. It was actually very complex at the time to do it in France because the classics way to give equity to people are not meant for restaurant businesses. But we sort of built this company with a startup minds, if you like, because we're not restaurateur at the beginning. We're like kids from business school, even if we love food. And so we brought that sort of business school mentality to restaurants and say, hey, why are these people who work for Uber and blah, 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 why does everyone have equity? And this guy who's managing a restaurant and every year is getting every 6 months he's getting a promotion, doing more, working super hard. Why doesn't he? Like, this company is going to be incredible. This company is going to be big, and it should make him rich too.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not even about making people rich. It's part of the fun, but it's also about you wake up in the morning and it's factually a little your company. And so that was a lot of work to structure it from a tax and shit perspective.
Right. But what year was that?
That was 7, 8 years ago.
7, 8 years ago. Okay, so like 2018.
Yeah. Now you have a lot more people.
Yeah, 160 people. Well, how many people were you employed with you?
500. So we
500.
had a quarter of the company, or even more.
Equity in the business. I mean, I think so. Again, my mission statement: inspire, empower, transform the industry. And I believe that by making an example of people like you and sharing your evolution, your transformation, your values, if we can paint a picture of what the job done right looks like and to share these values, I think, and inspire other people across the industry to have these values. I think one of the biggest things we need to correct about the industry is just being able to give people, one, opportunity, which you've clearly shown you've done, and two, security. People, you can't expect to attract onto yourself people if they aren't getting their most basic needs taken care of. I mean, a paycheck isn't enough. They need security. They need something to work towards, something to like literally own and be proud of. It's a part of human nature and human needs to have these things, and we do not fulfill that.
Yeah, the last thing we did that relates to what you're saying is growth. And so we've always tried to grow as fast as we could so that everyone could constantly be promoted. It's not rocket science to work in a restaurant.
Right.
It's a hard job. You have to love it. You have to give it your best shot. You have to love people. But it's not rocket science. And so if it's too repetitive, then people just move to the next company. And when they move to the next company, boom, this is your equity being diluted. And so we always thought we need to grow fast enough for everyone to get promotion and to not lose talent.
Right.
But if you grow too fast...
That was the next question.
If you grow too fast, then you don't have enough talents and you don't recruit talents fast enough. In particular, if, as I said, you want to recruit only junior people. So the pace of growth was always something we focused a lot about. And you can grow 30 to 40% per year per country. So this is also when we open new countries that opened more possibility for growth.
You can grow 20 to 30 people per year per
percent.
Percent.
Yeah. So if I've got 2 restaurants, I can open another 3. If I've got 3, I can open maybe 1. And then if I've got 4, I can start to open 2. And then 4 to 6 and 6 to 9. And
why is that the balance?
Don't ask me. That's just empirical. That's empirical.
But you know what that number is? The Pareto's principle.
No.
20%, 80-20 split. I think that culture, like, you know, because you said 20%, right?
I said 40.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said 30 to 40. But
30. Okay, never mind. I retract my previous statement. But it's funny how that number shows up all over the place in terms of like scale and growth and just like efficiency.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, so much for that. I was really excited. Okay, so what is that balance? Like, so you shared like the number, but like, how are you making sure you don't grow too fast? Like, what is the governor? What is the thing that you like? Is there like a KPI that you measure to say like maybe we need to slow down?
No. No, I was having this conversation with my kids this weekend.
You're training your kids on this stuff?
No, about how you decide how big a hike you do. And they were like, but Daddy, how do we know if it's not too big a hike? And I was like, when you cross the limit, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And so the way we thought about it was more, let's never ever fuck up an opening. So we have the rule of the 50,000 guests, the 50,000 first guests. I'm not even counting money. I'm not counting at all. I'm just make sure they're incredibly happy, the first 50,000. And of course the rest, but so don't mess up an opening. And so we have always over heavily invested in openings, spend too much money, spend too much capex, but none of our restaurants ever failed.
Yeah, you can't mess up an opening because you don't often get the second chance.
Yeah.
There is an episode I did. The name of the gentleman who I had this conversation with is escaping me. But he talked to the subject of the conversation was, how do you scale culture? And in this conversation, he was talking about when scaling, you need culture carriers. So if you grow a restaurant, you have like these GMs, and then the idea is to build up your bench, right? To get people in place. So when those GMs go, there's another person in place. Yeah. So when you're going to open a new restaurant, what you do is you take those enthusiastic people who are sweat, bleed, cry, like your culture, and you bring those and you inject those people into the next restaurant because they are the leaders. They carry the culture.
Yeah, but you make sure the guy you recruited, the junior you recruited, have the same DNA.
And they move in that person's space.
But then it depends what your culture is, because if you want to fuel growth, where we got lucky is that we have a growth plan. We're enjoying growing our restaurants across the world, but our culture is based, the number one value of this company is adventure. We're all adventurous. That's how we recruit people.
Adventure.
80% of
I want to make sure I heard that right.
Yes,
You're all
adventure.
Got it.
80% of our staff in Europe are Italian. What does that mean? These are people that are 20 to 25 years old, and they leave Italy. They probably just speak Italian, like most Italians. Okay. They leave their country to go to another country that they don't speak the language of to work. That's a bias of people who are extraordinarily adventurous.
Yeah.
That's the core of people that join the ship. And so, of course, when you say, hey, let's open a new restaurant, everyone's like, hey, we don't have the time, it's complex, no. Yeah, but that's an adventure.
Yeah, is that one of your core values, adventurous?
Yes.
What are your core values?
Excellency, like never, ever. I mean, if it's not too much, it's not. So excellency, authenticity. This is very much linked to the fact that everything we buy is from Italy. We're B Corp, blah, blah, blah. So authenticity. We don't pretend we're Italian when we're not, but we also, we cook without adjusting the taste of the food from a country to another. Authenticity. Meritocracy. Does that translate into English? Meritocracy?
No.
Meritocracy is when you get if you work hard. So you
get what you put in?
Yes, that's meritocracy.
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 It does.
With a good accent, meritocracy. An adventure.
Thank you. I love that, man. Great. And, I've had people on the show and I've asked them to list their core values. And you'd think that the CEO of a company would be able to just... And so you should be surprised at how many people can't. So like that is authenticity right there, my man. You pulled it off. So the name, it was killing me. It was Chris Schultz. He was the CEO at the time of Voodoo Donut, who talked about, he came from Starbucks, that idea of culture carriers. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Dude, we got about 20 minutes left. Where do we get to the point? Where was the pain in your life that you're like, I need to find a solution? Usually when a product or like a solution is created, it can become its own, like, it can stand on its own. So when did you start to identify that there was an opportunity for Sunday?
So Sunday is a pay-a-table solution. That's what it is. You're sitting at a table, and whenever you're done with your meal, we're having this conversation, and now, wow, it's 2:30, we need to go. Yeah. Right, what's going to happen? We're still talking, but we know back of our head that we need to go, right? So at some point, I'm going to try to catch the attention of our waitress. Okay, what... Okay, you've been to that moment? You see? All right. Now I see the waiter. Waiter comes, another 10 seconds. Can we have the check, please? Oh, sure. Go and fetch the check. It's going to take 2 minutes because that table next to us is actually willing some water or bread or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
The worst is when they do see you, but they pretend like they don't see you.
But you don't even have to go to the extremes. Even when you have a great waiter has a lot of tables, and just these people just got sat and they need to be explained the menu and receive proper hospitality.
You don't want to rush that, yeah.
All right. I'm not going to make you the whole flow, but what you easily get is that paying at the restaurant, at best, is vaguely okay.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the second I want the check, I want to be out. And so every second is too much and too long.
Okay.
can you remember one time in your life, and you spend a lot of time in restaurants, where you have a good memory of paying at the restaurant?
I mean,
You don't fight too hard. The answer is no.
the answer, it's never a fun experience. But I've used apps like this before, and that was what was coming to my mind. Like it's getting better.
And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this is the Uber moment.
Yeah.
Like the first time you use Uber, you're like, hey, I don't have to hail a cab at 1 a.m. after I get out of a party under the rain and wait 10 minutes before a cab comes, and then that cab is occupied, and I want to scream in the rain. Okay, that is the equivalent of, hey, I just paid my check by Apple Paying. In 2 seconds, I received my check by email. Boom, done.
Right.
Goodbye. And I actually now can enjoy saying, hey, bye to my waiter, and everyone's happy. Okay, so where does that come from? I'm a restaurateur, and all of us restaurateurs talking today, listening to this podcast, we do 10 things a day to try and do little marginal improvements to how good we deliver hospitality. Oh, let's change this process.
Right.
Let's get a better plate. Let's find these new wine glasses. Let's improve my wine menu so it's more exciting to read, and so on and so forth. When COVID came, QR code became a thing from being nothing.
Right.
Are they sexy? No. Do I dream of QR codes at night? No. But all of a sudden, they were here. And we thought, oh, maybe we could use them to just deliver better hospitality and allow our guests to pay in instance rather than having them to wait. And maybe if they do that, then my staff can use the same time, because I'm not reducing my staff. They can use the same time to focus on what they actually enjoy,
right,
which is explain the menu and make sure you have everything you need at the table, and go and ask you at the end, have a last touch point and say, hey, what could have we done better today? All these things that are true to our heart. So we build this little shitty
When did this start to happen?
During COVID, during lockdown.
Okay, got it.
And so we built this for us, and when we reopened our restaurants, we put it on the table. By that time, I totally forget about this idea. We had another 700 things going on, like reopening 16 restaurants in 6 countries.
So you were at 16 locations in 2020 and doubled in size in the past 5 years. Wow.
And so I forget about my QR codes, and 3 months later, I get an email from my CFO saying, oh, 75% of people pay with the QR code. And I was like, yeah, just check your figures. That's not true. And so that's actually the truth. And it's like 75% of our like 5,000 or 6,000 guests a day pay with this QR code in the last 3 months. I don't even know about it. That's insane. Like this idea we had, actually it resonates with our guests. And then my second question, which is the question of every good restaurateur when you talk about tech or anything, is, but how does the staff feel about it?
Well, that was my next question.
Like, how is it possible that this happened and I didn't get any feedback from the staff in 3 months? Like, I get staff complaints about everything every day. It's like, oh, staff loves it because they just have more time on their hands and they make more tips.
Well, I was going to say, has it affected the money that the staff is making?
More tips.
More tips. And why do you think that is?
More tips.
Is it because of the same idea of like when you give somebody the option of like 20, 25, or 30, then they...
Yeah, it's way more complex than that because we give options that are way smarter, that are AI powered, blah, 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 blah. But just giving the option to do it seamlessly with the picture of your staff on that page on your phone makes it so much easier. And by the way, you're just so happy because you're paying in seconds. How many times have you been just annoyed at the moment of payment? Everything went well, and now I just want to punish that staff because it took me 10 minutes to pay. Come on.
Well, the stat that I'm really interested in is how has this shortened the amount, like the overall time the guest sits down to leaves? How are you getting more turns in a day?
Yes.
What does that look like?
So again, Sunday, the number one reason why we did it, and then the reason why I stepped out of being CEO of Big Mama, which is a really, really, really good job to spin off Sunday and raise millions and do it across 2 continents, etc., was it's great for the guests. But then we realized that the value prop was so rich for the staff and for the restaurant.
That's what you call a win-win-win situation.
You're not looking for a job, right? You're pitching it better than I do. The table turn for a lot of restaurants, apart from our Michelin star clients, etc., because they come to it from a different angle. But typically the restaurants we're sitting at here, I checked the data before coming. The tables that are paid with QR codes turn 11 minutes faster, which is 15%. So when your table turns 15% on a Monday lunch, it's probably not going to change anything.
Right.
But on a Saturday night, you're going to make 9% more top line.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you're a brunch place and you're doing 80% of your money on like 4 shifts, This is 6 or 7% more top line.
If you got 200 seats too, that's when you can really start to see like the more volume you're doing, the bigger these numbers are going to be.
Yes, and it's not just that you're going to turntable more, you will, but also that table is going to be sat 15 minutes for 10 minutes faster. And what do you do when you're sat and you're not waiting 10 minutes for your table if you're a high volume restaurant? You're going to get another cocktail.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. That is one of the huge value prop. Higher tips, faster table turn. And what happens when you pay on your phone? When you pay on your phone, in one click you enroll in the loyalty if you're a restaurant with loyalty. And how many restaurants have loyalty but struggle to make it work?
So does that loyalty, is it Sunday, is the loyalty standalone or like?
No, we partner with all the loyalty under the sun.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Just like we partner with all the POSs with Toast and NCR, etc., etc.
So one of the things, I mean, you're not the only solution out there, right? Like there's a
Right.
lot of QR code payment solutions. What's different about Sunday? Like why? And I know there's certain things that I'm aware of that you haven't spoken about yet too.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
But why Sunday? Like when there are a lot of options.
First, I'll tell you the truth. There are not a lot of options.
Okay.
I think
there were people trying to be an option over the time.
I think COVID.
Yeah.
COVID made that you had every kid around the block in the tech industry saying, "Oh, we're going to transform hospitality, and waiters are dead now, and everything's going to happen through a QR code." So a lot of people
lost track. So many people were pitching me trying to get on the show, and I was like, "This is crazy."
Yeah.
But,
well, who do you see today?
They didn't survive.
Who do you see today?
You.
So the reason why, there are many reasons why we survived. I think the first reason, very practically, is we raised 125 million.
Okay.
The next guy in America had raised 2 million.
Okay.
It's a very expensive and complex technology to build.
Okay.
That's the number one reason, because building something that works 80% of the time is very easy. Building something that works 85% of the time costs 20 million, and building something that works 99.8% of the time costs 100 million.
Got it.
But this is a restaurant. If it doesn't work all the time, you lose track.
Right.
Waiters are not going to use you. They're going to lose trust, etc. So it's a very expensive technology to build. That's number one. The second reason is we don't come from order and pay. We have a great order and pay product. We even have a product where you can reorder but pay at the end. That's great. But we come from pay at table.
Okay. What's the difference between order and pay at table?
The order and pay is you're going to scan a QR code and you're going to order your food, and you're going to pay at the same moment. This is great for QSR.
Yeah.
It's not a great restaurant experience. So this is going to work for QSR. It's going to replace kiosk.
Got it.
You know, kiosk, this is going to be replaced in the next 10 years by people ordering from their phone. That's great, but it's a very little market. It's only big QSR, and each big QSR is actually going to build their own technology.
Got it. So you think that QSRs, or not QSRs, but why can I think of the word? You just said it, the tablet. Why?
Kiosk.
Thank you very much. You think kiosks are going to be going away soon?
Well, McDonald's. France is the second biggest country for McDonald's in the world.
Yeah.
All right. France was sort of first country to ever bring kiosk. It took them 10 years to bring them in the 1,200 McDonald's in France. As I speak, 35% of their orders now come from people on their phone and not kiosk. They want to get to 90% in the next 5 years.
It is more efficient, and everybody has it.
It is more efficient. Yeah. You're sitting at a table. You're not losing space for people to queue in the middle of your shop. In that space, you're actually going to sit people. And when I order, I have taken my jacket off. I'm sitting at a table rather than having my jacket on. It's too cold, too warm, and sitting and putting my fingers on a dirty kiosk where everyone puts theirs. I mean, it's not that easy because it's a complex technology to build for a high volume like McDonald's. We supply food courts that do 20, 30, even $60 million a year. managing these high volumes is a very complex technology, and changing the mindset of guests it's a 10-year revolution, but of course it's going to change.
Yeah. So you're describing...
But what we do, 85% of our business is pay at table. So it's replacing paying with your credit card and paying with your phone. And that works incredibly well in a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah.
And that works incredibly well in a fast casual restaurants. It works in every restaurant, and it doesn't take away hospitality. It enhances it.
Get into how that enhances hospitality.
Well, how much fun do you have having your waiter go back and forth and splitting that check in 3 and having to fill this paper and sign it down? How fun was that?
Yes,
or how fun was that to have this waitress take her handheld and go around the table and beep, beep, beep the cards while she's calculating what is $33 split in 2. This is not good hospitality. Whereas if you're actually paying in seconds, your waiter or your waitress is actually having a lot more time to take care of you. And by the time probably she's already taken care of you, she's taking care of the next table who just got sat. Hello, how are you today? I'd rather have my staff say hello to the people who come than force people who want to go to wait 10 minutes to tell them goodbye when they want to have been out 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we're a lot of what's happening on the show, the conversation happening on the show is this idea that we're going to have to learn how to do more with less. And I think a lot of people are worried about technology, like to your point, like threatening the hospitality. But
Let me give you an anecdote about this.
What's that?
Let me give you an anecdote. In the year 2000, OpenTable was founded. And you had every Michelin star chef under the sun in America that said, oh, that's never for us. We're about people. It's hospitality.
I want a person answering the phone.
I want a person answering the phone, a real voice.
Yeah.
And a few years later, they came back and said, we were wrong.
Yeah.
It is actually being unhospitable to force you, my guests, to wait until opening hours to call, queue on the phone, and then spell your email to someone when you could have done it in 10 seconds yesterday at 1 a.m. if this is when you wanted to book. And by the way, it's just an option. Of course, you can call as well. You can pay with your QR code on the table. You can also pay with your credit card. You have the option. But what we witness today for people who have both online reservation and phone reservation is that 90+% of people book online. And what we witnessed at Sunday 4 years after we started is that 82% of people in America across big cities, mid-cities, and small cities, 82% rather pay with their phone if they can. By the way, which means 18% of people still want to pay cash, want to pay with their credit card, and it's fine. But this is still 82% of them who rather pay with their phone, just like these people rather book online.
Yeah, if you look up the words that are like synonymous to hospitality, generosity is one of those words. It's a synonym. So you have to think, how do I, what is one way to be generous? Give people their time back. Time is one of the most precious commodities out there. And if you can be generous with people's time, you are absolutely delivering hospitality.
So Sunday is called Sunday because the baseline of the company, what we wanted to do was save time for what matters.
Yeah.
This is the baseline of the company. And so Sunday is that day of the week where you use the time that you've earned and you do whatever you want. So I cannot agree more with you.
But not only are you being more hospitable by giving back time, you're also being more efficient, and you could potentially lower your labor expense by offering a more efficient way to do more with less.
Fast casual restaurants achieve that with Sunday.
Yeah.
Full service restaurants, most of them, they don't.
I do think we're moving to more fast casual operations. I think they're more profitable. I don't think fine dining is going away, but fine dining only serves a small percentage of the people can afford fine dining. Most people want to go out, but most people can afford fast casual or casual dining.
Yeah.
So in that setting where you have to, you can do more throughput by offering these technologies and these systems. Like you can.
So yes, you're saving on staff, but the thing is, you're not employing less people. You're just doing more top line.
Yeah.
What's happening is when you turn your table faster, when you get a 4.8 out of 5 with 25,000 reviews on Google, and all of that thanks to Sunday, what happens is you make more top line and you can absorb it with your existing staff.
Got it.
This is what we witness.
So this is a short interview today. We squeezed it in. We only had about an hour to sit down and talk. We're getting close to time, but I want to make sure, is there anything that we did not discuss? The future of Sunday, an element of Sunday that hasn't come to the conversation. I know that you also have the ability to do customer feedback, and that has not come out yet. So
that is so incredible. So when you take a Uber, right? At the end of your ride, you rate instinctively, boom, you rate your Uber.
Yeah.
So you do exactly the same on Sunday. And what happens is then we push you to Google to also rate it on Google. So instead of having just the haters and the Instagrammers that go and rate on Google, you give this opportunity to everyone. So let me give an example. In each and every of my restaurants, every week I've got 1,007 to 1,900, almost 2,000 people a week rate their experience.
Wow.
And they give me details. This is almost 9,000 a month. This is 20 times more data than what I collect with 7 Rooms or Resi or Open Table, with comments, etc. by waiter. When you have more than one location, it's 20 years in the future about how you manage performance, both at the restaurant level and at the individual level. But it doesn't stop there, because this is how you manage internally. But because then we push these people to Google, Google drives revenue today for restaurants. This is how people find restaurants.
Yeah.
These restaurants we're sitting in opened 4 months ago. It opened 4 months ago. It has 900 reviews at 4.9.
Timeout. I have to also thank you for reminding me. This restaurant we're sitting in right now is Del Bar, owned by Fars Kargar.
It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Fars Kargar, for last minute letting us sit in this space and record this episode. He's a past guest. He's actually been on the show twice. First time I recorded in his first location, second time I recorded in his second location, and we're recording 4 months after opening in his third location. He's a hell of a guy, and I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge Fars, and he's using Sunday, and that's how we made this happen. So hopefully we can get maybe a little demo before I leave of how that works. But sorry for interrupting your train of thought.
No, not at all.
I just wanted to say thank you to our boy Fars.
But yeah, marketing, a lot of people come to Sunday from a different perspective. If you're a Michelin star, you're not going to turn your table faster. You don't care about that. But if you're a Michelin star, you want to provide the most exclusive, exquisite experience. And the whole checkout moment is sort of almost gross, all these credit cards and shit, where you could have people pay very seamlessly. And the people who go to Michelin star restaurants, trust me, they buy on Shopify. They are used to buying something online in one click. They Apple Pay everywhere they go in the world. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they're like in a Michelin star and they have to give their credit card and it goes back and forth. It's gross.
Yeah.
So that's why Michelin star come to it. If you're Del Bar and you're having almost 1,000 guests on a Saturday, when you turn your table 11 minutes faster, this is significant top line. All right. If you're a Big Mama and you have 30 restaurants, well, you're going to manage your performance and know that every restaurant is at par with the standards of quality. If you have a franchise, you're franchising, you want to have this because this is how people are going to enroll into your loyalty system. And your loyalty system as a franchise is what you're selling to your franchisees. Hey, I've got this great crowd. People love us. We have this great loyalty program. This is why you should take my franchise. Well, except it doesn't, because people don't enroll. Unless you have Sunday and people, boom, in one click they can. So a lot of people come to Sunday from a different angle.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone loves the fact that tips are 10% higher. Actually, between 12 at scale in America, 10 on versus toast, 14 versus classic paper check. 12% more tips is 11% more wages for 99% waiters. 11% more wages. Like, if you're a restaurateur and your number one pain is to find a warm body and people and motivate them to come and work for you and stay and grow with you, I mean, that's as good as it gets.
Now we're talking about enlightened hospitality and delivering hospitality to your guests with generosity, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
It all ties back around. Not to mention, so you mentioned that Del Bar, 4 months open, nearly 900 reviews, 4.9 star rating. You didn't mention that part. So almost a 5-star rating, which is so hard to do, nearly impossible.
Imagine you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, and we're in Atlanta.
Imagine you're traveling to Atlanta. Are you going to go to a restaurant that has 1,000 reviews after 4 months and 4.9, or are you going to go to the next restaurant that has 200 and 4.2?
I mean,
how much more? How much people?
Well, I have a question on the tail end of that. So, the only customer feedback platform that I'm mostly familiar with is Ovation, and I know that when you check out or you scan the QR code to leave a review, if it's anything less than a 5-star review, say if it's a 4 or 3-star review, it alerts the team, or it won't queue you up to leave a review. If it's a bad review, like what has to happen to get prompted to go to Google?
So you can't prevent people from going to Google. That would be called gating. It's not compliant with Google. We're great partners with Google. So what happens if you put 5-star? I don't need you to give me further pat in the back and tell me why it was so crazily great. So I immediately push it to Google. If you give me less than 5-star, I'm going to ask you further questions to understand and get feedback and actionable feedback.
Do managers get alerted when that
And of course, then you can set it up. What I do in my restaurants is I set it up on 1, 2, and 3 stars. Not 4, because if not, it's too many alerts. But 1, 2, and 3 stars. My managers get his phone vibrating in their pocket.
How much time? Immediately?
Instantly. Yeah. But the moment people put that rating, contrary to your reservation system where they rate the next day in front of their computer, on Sunday when they're rating, they don't even have their jackets on. They're still sitting at the table paying. So my manager will run to the table and rescue it. Oh, hello, ma'am. I'm very sorry. I understand we were probably not at par today with our expectations, and I understand it didn't go well. I'm very sorry. Can I ask what we could have done better? And boom, he's going to comp the bottle of wine, the cocktails if they took 20 minutes to come, or the whole meal.
Yeah. We're at time, my friend. We got to wrap it up, but I do want to ask you just 2 more questions before we say goodbye.
Yes,
the first question is, who do you respect and admire in the industry? This is my North Star. This is how I find future guests on the show. This is where I dictate where I go in the country to get people on the show. Who do you respect and admire? Somebody who's just doing it right, who's changing the game, who you believe needs to be made an example of.
Well, first, I admire and I respect everyone who's running a restaurant. Let's start with this. That's a hard question. I can think of a few people. If we're talking about a one-shot restaurant, Sonny's Steakhouse in Miami was one of my best meal recently.
Sonny's Steakhouse.
Yes.
And do you have another one?
Yes. Ballyhoo in Chicago, they do an amazing job. So Ballyhoo in Chicago said, you know what? Traffic is getting crazier. People don't want to go to town to have dinner, etc. We're going to build the best restaurants in the suburbs.
Got it.
Where people actually live. And they have built incredible restaurants. And the way they do it is they operate. You should get them to talk about how they treat people and grow people, etc. It's incredible. And you go to the suburbs of Chicago, where your average restaurant is, on average, sort of rather boring, at least boring compared to what you have find in downtown Chicago.
Got it.
And their restaurants are just stunning, and they're killing it.
Yeah. And that's, how do you spell that? Ballyhoo?
Ballyhoo.
Got it. Look out. Sonny Steakhouse, I'm coming after you. Ballyhoo, I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. I'm going to be in that part of the country later this year too, so I'd love to make that happen. And if we are interested, how do we learn more about Sunday App?
Well, you go on the website, you put your email, you write to me, victor.lugger@sundayapp.com. If you're writing to me, you're certainly a restaurateur, and we can talk Sunday App. We can talk about Big Mama coming to the US, and can just get to know each other. I mean, meeting restaurateurs has been the best things in my life so far.
I love it too, man. That's for sure. So I'm not sure what episode this number is yet. Stick around to the closing thoughts. We'll let you know then. And I just can't say thank you enough, Victor, for taking time to squeeze me in. We made it happen. I cannot do what I do without people like you getting open, getting vulnerable, sharing your information. And there is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure's mine. Bye-bye.